Thank you so much for the kind words. Thank you so much for having me, dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm impressed and inspired by the words we heard this morning and by a very beautiful breakfast before. And I'm glad to share some perspectives on today's and tomorrow's occasion. Last night, before going to bed, I checked my phone, like I guess most of us, and I just didn't know. I didn't know whom to reach out first. To my Iranian friends, who are losing their minds this very moment, to my friends in the US who can't comprehend what is happening to them, to my colleagues in the West Bank who have lost their words to describe the horror, to my contact in Sudan who has found that the collapse of her home has become a by the way emergency. Oh, by the way, there's an issue in Sudan. Or should I first reach out to my grandmother of 92 years back in my hometown Hamburg, who is wondering whether her body will make it through the very heat wave outside. As the privileged among us are trying to distribute their attention and solidarity equally, and those at the front lines are trying to distribute what there's left to survive from equally, I'm witnessing a new desperation creeping into the conversations and discussions and bedtime talks. We know that the wars and crises out there are connected, and worse, we know that every imaginable crisis is accelerated by the climate and ecological emergency. We know that every centigrade of degrees intensifies climate catastrophes, the droughts, the floods, the heat, the inequality. Science has shown and shown and shown again that for the first time in the history of humankind, our planetary systems are likely to collapse. Not accidentally collapse, but because we make them to. And with every bit of planetary and climate stability we lose homes and habitats and freedoms and futures and foundations of what should be just economies and communities. And as always, those who are losing the most are usually those who've contributed the least. Yet right now, in this very precise moment, as climate action would be more necessary than ever, we see leader after leader turning away. What feels like yesterday, world leaders at the COP climate conference officially declared to phase out fossil fuels, and just today we see new gas fields being opened in Germany and other places. We see new oil pipelines being installed in Uganda and Tanzania and around the world. After having held all the nice green speeches about the children and the climate, some of the most responsible governments break their own climate targets and greenwash their policies right in front of our very eyes. What were once the big promises from the global north about all the spending and adaptation and loss and damage has turned into a quiet whisper. And yes, we see the oligarchs and the fascists and the war criminals and the populists who are happily erasing all things climate justice, but possibly even worse than that, we see democratic governments, in particular those in the so-called West. We see business leaders and international organizations who are willingly jumping on that very train, on that anti-planet, anti-humanity, anti-solidarity train. And after all, this is not about targets and agreements and high-level decision-making only. This is about human decency. It's about global trust. It's the foundation of everything. It's about that very global trust that is eroding over one broken promise after the other. And yet imagine what could happen otherwise. How those demanding and fighting for climate justice right now could prove that indeed another world is in fact possible after all, that dignity for all after all is non-negotiable. To come there, the first most important step is to acknowledge the urgency. Right now, as we speak, the emissions of some destroy the homes of many. The lifestyle of the richest destroys the livelihoods of the marginalized. Every single day, someone needs to move away, migrate, or flee. Rising seas do not wait for visas. Wildfires do not stop at borders. Collapsing ecosystems do not care whether we have a busy agenda or not. The countries who've contributed to the climate disasters around the world must be held accountable when it comes to compensating and welcoming those affected. And this must change the way that the safest countries in the world discuss migration and respect. As wars and climate catastrophes force people to consider where to spend the future, we need frameworks on justice and climate that could become a desperately needed blueprint for new justice around global mobility. We need legal frameworks to recognize climate displacement not as a loophole, but as a legitimate reason to seek safety. We need early action so that people can adapt before they are forced to move. And we need the wealthiest nations to step up, not just with words, but with reparations, with resources and refuge. This is not about charity, and I feel like I have to daily remind some. It is not about charity, it's about responsibility. And finally, we need leaders and people to fight for every inch of climate action and justice there can possibly be. Do not speak of a future as long as you are allowing to burn it. Do not make promises to your children as long as you take away their hopes for a safe tomorrow. Do not pretend that there can be a peaceful world as long as you allow that very world to run on fossil fuels. Those who are erasing climate justice from the agenda right now want to erase the idea of dignity for all. That is what it is all about. It is not enough to quietly dislike this trend. We need you to stand up against this, to demonstrate that climate justice and dignity for all is a realistic vision as long as a single person out there fights for it. Because after all, what is climate justice? Maybe it's just the moment that we look each other into the eyes and acknowledge each other's humanity. And possibly that is a moment to remember or recall what we owe the future. Do we owe them some resources to plunder? Yes. We owe them some planetary stability? Yes, of course. But most of all, we owe the future the proof that we can figure this out, that humanity, after all, holds the capacity to bring people together and organizing peace and security and freedom for all, no matter where they come from. Thank you very much.